Hi, I'm Karen and this is Jack. If you're watching this videotape, you're interested in learning more about installing Pergo.
Karen and I would like to be the first to congratulate you. If you're a new Pergo owner, congratulations on your purchase of the most durable, best-selling laminate floor from the company that invented laminate flooring.
And if you're a professional installer, especially someone about to use Pergo for the first time, then you're also to be congratulated. You'll soon have the pleasure of working with one of the easiest to install flooring materials on the market.
True, but before we get to know the floor, let's get to know this tape.
We've made it easy to use this tape by adding a visible time code and color reference to separate the segments.
If you're a do-it-yourselfer who's comfortable with power tools and home improvement projects, you'll find Pergo easy to install.
If you're a novice at home projects, you should call a professional.
We've packed a lot of how-to information in this tape to help you have the confidence to do a great job. Pergo is a versatile flooring material. Even so, there are conditions that are ideal for Pergo.
And there are conditions that are not. The main thing you want to check for is that you're installing Pergo in a home where moisture won't be a problem. Want to take a walk?
Let's go.
The home we'll be working on today is ideal. First, the downspouts are in place for channeling water away from the house.
The lot's also been graded to an acceptable slope of 1/2 inch per foot for at least 10 feet from the foundation.
Whether it's pier and beam, slab, or basement construction, you'll need plenty of drainage away from the house.
For pier and beam construction, make sure the vents aren't blocked and that the crawl space has at least 1.5 square feet of venting space for every 100 square feet of floor space.
You'll also need to check for a 6 mil or thicker plastic vapor barrier, either covering the ground in the crawl space or attached to the underside of the floor. Now, a concrete subfloor like the one we'll be working on sits directly on the ground, and because concrete is such a porous material, moisture is constantly absorbed up through the slab.
You'll see later how we install a plastic vapor barrier on top of the concrete to protect the floor. On new construction like this, the concrete needs to cure for 60 days, so make sure you factor 2 months into your construction schedule before you install any floor.
Okay. We've determined that the conditions are right for installing Pergo in this house. Let's look at our tools.
Now, you'll need a utility knife and a pry bar, a power saw, either a circular saw or a table saw with carbide tip blade, a combination square and a scriber, a hammer and a scraper, some Pergo cleaner, and a bucket of water and cleaning rags. Oh, you'll also need safety glasses. Be sure to remember these and protect your eyes. That's very important. And a tape measure, preferably one with metric measurements.
Well, you're right about that, Jack. It's really handy to use metric measurements because Pergo planks are exactly 20 centimeters wide and 120 centimeters long, and it's a lot easier to do the math than working with fractions of inches. The planks are 7 7/8 inches wide and 47 1/4 inches long.
You mean you can't calculate multiples of 7 7/8 inches in your head?
Let's stay on the track, Jack.
Yeah, okay.
There are also some special Pergo tools and system components you'll need. Most of them are packaged together for you in this installation kit.
It contains a tapping block, a pull bar for those hard-to-reach places like under cabinets, and spacers. Now you'll need extra spacers which come in bags of 48. Yeah. Figure on 1 spacer for every square foot of flooring you'll install.
Professional installers use several additional tools, such as professional tapping blocks, pull bars, and end clamps. Pergo installation clamps are also used to set up the first 3 rows.
The professional uses installation straps, like this, which function just like clamps, but they can also be used to install the entire floor. And you'll see how these work as we demonstrate installation. You should be able to rent the straps or clamps from your dealer.
You'll need whisper walk, like that, or Pergo underlayment foam. And you may also need Pergo polyethylene film as a moisture barrier. We'll be showing you how to determine whether or not you need polyfilm.
And last but not least, Pergo glue.
Oh, you'll need lots of glue, but not for gluing the material to the subfloor like you might think.
In fact, the floor won't be glued, nailed, or attached to the subfloor in any way. The only thing holding a Pergo floor down is gravity.
It's called a floating floor, which means it just sits on top of the subfloor.
This makes it very easy to install, remove, or repair. And since Pergo is made primarily from wood-based materials, it's always expanding and contracting with changes in humidity.
This is allowed for by a 1/4-inch expansion space around the edge of the floor, and anywhere else the floor meets a fixed object. The space allows the floor to float.
Even though this constant movement is imperceptible to the human eye, your Pergo floor will actually travel 140,000 cumulative miles over the life of the floor.
He's only kidding. Anyway, the glue is not used for gluing the floor down. It's used to glue the plank's tongue and groove edges together. And you have to use the Pergo glue for the 15-year warranty to be valid.
You're probably also going to need some Pergo sealant or other 100% silicone sealant, and that's something we'll need to talk about later.
Shall we?
After you. We're planning to install Pergo in this kitchen, so the first thing to do is decide which direction the planks will go.
There's really not a right or wrong direction. It's just a matter of aesthetics, what looks best.
Yeah. So the first thing to do is determine which direction light usually enters the room.
Generally, the flooring looks best if the planks are installed parallel to the incoming light.
Now, the exception to that rule is a narrow space, such as a hallway. You'll usually want to install Pergo lengthwise in a hall, regardless of the light source.
Since we have these large windows in the breakfast area letting light flood the room, we'll lay our planks in this direction.
Now that we've determined that the length of the planks will run the length of the room, let's measure the width. Okay, that's 14 feet 9 inches at the widest point.
Now you'll see what I meant about how much easier it is to work in metric measurements. So Jack, what's the width in centimeters?
Okay, that's 450 centimeters. To determine how many rows of planks it'll take to cross the room, you divide that by the width of a Pergo plank, which is 20 centimeters.
A lot easier to deal with than dividing 14 feet 9 inches by 7 7/8 inches.
It sure is. Now, the reason we start out by taking this measurement is to determine how much we'll need to cut off of the planks in the last row.
Ideally, you should not have a plank that's less than 5 centimeters or 2 inches wide. If the room measurement indicates you'll end up with a space that's smaller than that, you'll need to cut the planks in the first row so that the last row won't be so narrow.
And at this stage in the planning, you need to decide which trim and finishing components you'll need. Take note of the trim and molding section of this tape and plan early on which strips you'll need.
You also need to calculate how many cartons of Pergo you need. To determine the number of cartons, we've divided the room into rectangles and squares. We've taken the square footage of each area, added them together, and then we add 10% to the total square footage, or a little more for complicated floor plans or when laying the floor diagonally. This covers any miscuts and normal waste. Each carton will cover 20.67 square feet or 1.9 square meters of floor. So once you have your total area, plus the 10%, divide by either 20.67 for feet or 1.9 for meters, and purchase that number of cartons, rounding up to the nearest number.
Because we're about to install Pergo in this room, we put these planks here 48 hours ago.
This is important because it allows the Pergo to adjust to the normal room temperature and humidity before you install it. This helps ensure a good fit.
That's right. Now the next thing we need to do is make sure the subfloor or existing flooring is ready for Pergo.
Here's one of the greatest things about Pergo. You can install it right over most flooring material, ceramic tile, vinyl, and hardwood, and it can go over concrete or wood subflooring.
There are particular things you need to look for in each case to make sure your existing floor is properly prepared. First, your subfloor has to be clean, dry, and sound.
And you need to make sure the subfloor is level. Now, most floors appear to be level, but there's a way to make sure it's flat enough for Pergo.
Use a straight edge to find the point of greatest difference between two high points and the lowest point between them, like this.
It's pretty level over here.
Yeah, got one low spot right here. I'll mark this.
Now, the gap shouldn't be more than 5 millimeters measured over the length of 3 meters. That's 3/16 of an inch over a length of 10 feet. Of course, you'll be checking the entire floor.
Yeah. All right, if you find the floor has more variation than that, you must correct it before installing Pergo.
If your concrete subfloor is unlevel, you'll need to grind down the high points or use a leveling compound, like one made with Portland cement. It uses liquid latex or a powdered latex mixed in the cement as a binder, so you get a good, hard, smooth, level surface.
For a wood subfloor that needs leveling, use a sander or, again, a self-leveling compound to correct the problem.
And make sure you give the patching material plenty of time to dry thoroughly, following the manufacturer's instructions.
If you have an existing parquet or plank floor that is glued to a concrete subfloor, it must be removed before installing Pergo or the flooring will buckle. Oh, and this probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can't install Pergo over carpeting.
Well, Jack, I guess that is pretty obvious. So let's go on and talk about the next step, checking for damage to the subfloor.
All right, let's do that. If you've pulled up carpet, make sure you remove all padding staples, uneven glue residues, and any lumps of material on the subfloor.
And if the subfloor is wood, walk the floor carefully, checking for squeaks and uneven joints in the subfloor.
To reduce or remove squeaks, re-nail the subfloor to the floor joists. Moving right along, let's make sure the door frames are ready. To do this, use a piece of whisper walk or underlayment foam and a loose plank placed upside down when sawing, like I'm doing here. Just undercut the door frames and casings so there's enough room to slide the flooring underneath. Since we're also installing Pergo in the laundry room, we've cut the jambs and door stops.
Now we're ready to talk about the underlayment. We Pergo installers really love our underlayments.
Whenever there's a concrete subfloor, even if it's covered with vinyl, linoleum, or tile, you must cover the subfloor with a layer of Pergo 6mm polyethylene film.
This polyfilm forms a vapor barrier to keep moisture from reaching the underside of your Pergo flooring.
But you should never put polyethylene film over wood or any other organic material. It can trap moisture and cause mold or mildew.
But what if you have hardwood over concrete?
I know that you know this, Karen, but it's a good idea to restate the fact that you cannot install Pergo on top of wood that has a concrete subfloor. The wood has to be removed first, then you use the polyfilm as a vapor barrier over the concrete.
Just trying to trip you up there. Now, there is the possibility that there might be too much moisture in the subfloor, so you should do a little test first.
Check the moisture level by taping down a piece of polyfilm about 2 feet by 2 feet or 1 square meter in 2 or 3 spots. A rubber-backed mat will work too, and wait 72 hours.
When you check back, if you see darker concrete under your cover, or if the plastic has become cloudy, or if you see moisture condensation, then you have a subfloor with an overly high moisture content.
In this case, ask your retailer or call 1-800-33-PERGO for assistance.
After you've determined whether or not you need the polyethylene film, you'll need to select your Pergo underlayment. Whisper Walk is the latest and greatest thing developed by the makers of Pergo Flooring. It significantly reduces impact sound, especially for overhead rooms, and gives a more natural sound.
Pergo Whisper Walk also increases comfort and warmth underfoot and improves dent resistance. It's the superior choice. Now, there's also the Pergo underlayment foam, which offers these benefits to a lesser degree.
Okay, first clean the floor of all dirt and debris. Scrape up any lumps of glue or drywall compound.
If you've determined that you need a moisture barrier, Spread out the 6 mil film, cut and fit it to the edge of the room. Be sure the vapor barrier goes all the way to the edges of the floor. Here you go.
Ready? Great.
Yeah.
Overlap each strip at all seams by 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Great.
If you encounter a gap between the drywall and the floor, insert a wood filler strip to support the spacers. Good.
Great.
Okay, get a couple in there.
Yep.
That's
Perfect.
okay. Now, when you install Whisper Walk, fit loosely and leave the expansion space at the walls and around fixed objects. Be sure to stagger the seams as we've done here.
You can use some masking tape to hold the pieces in place.
Got it.
Great.
Yep. If you use underlayment foam instead of Whisper Walk, unroll one width at a time. Install planks up to the edge of the roll, then unroll another width, butting the edges. Loose fit the seams, never overlap foam.
So that's it for underlayments. Your Pergo planks are ready to install right out of the box. Still, it's a good idea to inspect them for shipping damage.
You'll notice that they're manufactured with a tongue and groove design both on the sides and the ends. This helps lock them together.
Let's look at a straight wall installation. Start by testing your installation without using glue along the first wall.
The groove side of the first row goes against the wall. Using spacers, start in the corner and move down along the length of the wall, left to right. There's a specific method for installing a Pergo floor. Here's the order. Full plank, full plank, one-third plank, full plank, two-thirds plank. This plank arrangement creates a strong base from which you can build the remaining floor.
Lay out the first 3 rows so you can see how the floor is going to fit together. Getting the first 3 rows perfectly aligned is critical for a good installation.
There may be some walls where, after you've assembled the first 3 rows, the wall may be irregularly shaped or bowed.
In this instance, you can use a scriber to mark the first row, then cut the planks so they'll fit the contour of the wall.
Now you've seen a straight wall installation, so let's go back to our kitchen. Not all starting positions are the same.
Let's take a look at what we have here in our kitchen. Along our starting wall, we have 2 doorways. This one here and the one behind me. We determined that we can begin at these cabinets with a full width of a plank. And, oh yeah, we also have a refrigerator space.
In the doorway and passageway to the living room, we created a temporary backstop with this 1x2. This supports the Pergo planks during installation. Now we construct, without glue, our first 3 rows.
We use the same starting method you just saw.
With these 3 rows, we begin with a full plank width at the cabinets.
Make sure you keep up with the original location of the planks so you can put them back down in the same order when you glue them.
Now I'll put in one of these planks that we pre-cut, fitting it here against the door, being sure to leave sufficient room under the casing for expansion.
And here's another pre-cut plank.
All right, I think, yeah, that fit in nicely. Looks good. And on the second row, remembering the stair-step method, we'll put in a 1/3 plank. followed by a full plank.
And another one. Great.
That looks good. Now, a 2/3.
Here's a full one.
Good.
Great. And I'll just give it a little tap with the tapping block.
Looks good. All right.
Great.
This is an installation clamp designed to set up the first 3 rows. At the back of the clamp is a distance spacer. You can adjust this to create a 1/4 inch or 7 millimeter expansion space. And this is the foot, which fits against the plank. In the front is this wing bolt that you can turn to make fine adjustments. The clamp is designed to hold 3 plank widths together. If you reduce the width of the first row, like we've done here, save the piece you cut off and place it at the head of the clamp on the 3rd row, like this, then make your fine adjustments. Usually you'll use 2 clamps per plank length.
Here is the Pergo installation strap. You thread the strap into the ratchet this way. Pull the strap tight, then move the handle to create more tension. To release the ratchet and loosen the strap, lift up the plate and move the handle forward. Now place your thumb on the lower plate, release it, and pull forward to the next plank. Once you're satisfied that everything's in good shape, it's time to lay these planks in for real. Jack, let's get out the glue. Remember, the Pergo warranty is valid only if you use Pergo glue. Just cut the nozzle off the glue bottle so you get a good healthy bead of glue to fill in the groove. Okay, lay the first plank back in place.
All right.
Remember the spacers on the side and the end. Now, glue the second plank of the first row in place. Don't be stingy with the glue either. Now glue the first plank of the second row in place.
When you press the planks together, make sure excess glue squeezes up out of the joint. Pull the planks together tightly to create a watertight seal.
Use the tapping block and a hammer to lightly tap the ends together.
It's very important to clean up the glue as you go. Move to the 3rd row. Remember the pattern? And glue the first plank in this row.
Now we begin to use either a clamp or a strap to tighten the planks together. Here we are using the straps. Attach a strap to squeeze the 3 plank widths together. Always have glue oozing out of the seam and clean up as you go. If you apply too much pressure, the front plank will pop up. Just make sure you have tight joints and the planks are flat.
See the stair-step pattern? Next, return to the first row. Glue and set the next plank, following upward to the second and then the 3rd row using the straps to squeeze the width of the planks together and the tapping block to keep the end joints together. You want all of the joints to fit tightly together.
Keep moving down the length of the wall, doing 1 plank at a time in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd row in that order. Whenever the joint of a plank falls very close to a joint of whisper walk, cover the whisper walk joint with masking tape so the glue doesn't seep through to the subfloor.
If you run out of straps before reaching the end of the room, remove the first straps that you used and use them to finish.
When you're putting the last plank in a row, use an end clamp to tighten the row, or you can use a pry bar.
Wipe up the excess glue with a damp cloth and lukewarm water. Rinse the cloth regularly. Neatness counts.
After the first 3 rows are in place, let them dry for 1 hour before continuing with the rest of the room.
After cutting the last piece in a row, take the balance of that plank and use it in the next row or another row, remembering that you must maintain at least an 8-inch or 20 centimeters stagger between the end joints from one row to another. This ensures the strength of the floating floor. Now, before we go any further, we must take care of spaces like this one.
This is one of the conditions where Pergo loose tongue can be used. Cut and fit in dry the loose tongue here and here.
Then dry fit Pergo planks to the backstop here and to the wall here.
Remove the dry fitted planks, glue in the loose tongue.
We use the loose tongue so that we may pick up the plank. See the groove and be sure that we are filling it up with glue properly. Otherwise, we'd have to fill the groove from the floor, which is awkward. Glue and fit each piece into place using the installation straps to squeeze the joints tightly together.
Sooner or later, you're going to encounter any number of interruptions in the floor. Pipes, stairs, toilet flanges, air vents, anything you have to go around. Now this step isn't difficult, but you do have to move carefully. Let's look at working around a pipe. Sometimes a pipe might be at the end of the plank. Position the plank against the pipe and mark the pipe's center.
Put a spacer at the wall and measure the distance from the spacer to the edge of the plank. Transfer that measurement from the center of the pipe to the plank. Measure from the adjacent plank to the center of the pipe and use this measurement to find the center of the pipe on the plank. To maintain the necessary expansion space, drill a hole that's a ½ inch, or 14 millimeters, larger than the diameter of the pipe.
If you're lucky, you can just drop the plank over the pipe. If not, cut off the end of the plank across the center of the hole. Use plenty of glue to secure the plank and the end piece in place around the pipe.
If the pipe falls along the long edge of the plank, measure from the adjacent plank to the center of the pipe and transfer that measurement to the plank. Again, put a spacer at the wall. Measure from the spacer to the center of the pipe and transfer that measurement to the plank. The point where the two marks meet is where the center of the pipe will fall.
Drill a hole at this point that's a ½ inch or 14 millimeters larger than the diameter of the pipe to maintain the expansion space around the pipe.
Draw two lines at a 45-degree angle away from the hole. Cut out the piece. Slide the plank into position and glue the plank and its piece in place.
Toilet flanges, air vents, screws that fasten a threshold or attach the foot of a bifold door to the floor, all need the expansion space around them. Anytime Pergo meets the wall or a fixed object, you have to give it room to expand. That ½ inch gap is essential to a good installation.
Okay, we've worked our way over to the opposite wall. At this point, you'll have to trim the last row lengthwise. And as always, we'll maintain an expansion space at the wall.
This is not as tricky as it might seem. Just lay the last row of planks on top of the next to last row, matching the edges. Use a full width of plank with tongue to trace the wall contour along the final row.
Saw the planks, cutting off your pencil line. Glue the last row in position. Wedge it in with a final row of spacers along the wall. Now, step back and look at what we've done. Looks good, doesn't it?
Well, don't celebrate yet. We're not quite finished.
Allow the glue to dry for 12 hours, then you can remove the spacers and install the molding and trim. One of the greatest things about Pergo is that it's perfect for use in kitchens and bathrooms, rooms where cleanup of other types of flooring can be such a chore.
In bathrooms, you simply use the sealant to fill the expansion space around the perimeter of the room. And around the flange for the toilet. You can use an end molding against tubs or shower basins. Pre-cut the end molding, fill the expansion space with sealant, and then press the end molding into place. Clean up the excess sealant with acetone.
In the kitchen, use the sealant around the dishwasher compartment, or in front of it if the washer is already installed, and run a bead of sealant in the expansion space along the cabinet where the kitchen sink is located. Fill the expansion space around the refrigerator area and seal around any water supply line, such as for the ice maker, which may come up through the floor.
In the laundry room, seal the expansion space. By the way, we do not install Pergo in any room with a floor drain. Naturally, any floor is susceptible to damage if there's flooding.
Use Pergo sealant or another 100% silicone sealant. It remains flexible and elastic so the floor can still expand and contract.
Pergo makes a complete line of finishing moldings. The wall base and quarter round are color coordinated to beautifully finish out the room.
Pergo also makes T-molding for transitions between two areas of Pergo flooring, reducer strips for transitions from Pergo to other flooring materials, end moldings for use against thresholds, ceramic tiles, sliding doors, and bathtubs, and stair nosing for use on stairs and steps. All these laminate moldings are color matched to Pergo designs and are as durable as the floor itself. When the floor is finished and has set for 12 hours, you can install the trim.
When two Pergo surfaces meet, like in a doorway or narrow archway that's no more than 4 feet wide, you'll bridge the gap with a laminate T-molding. We've cut a 1x2 wood spacer strip, which is 3/4 of an inch wide. It has a 1/2 inch space at each end. The strip has been positioned where the T-molding will go. It's been centered in place and screwed down for easy removal later. At that point in the installation, we used the thin side of one of the spacers and installed right up to the block.
Remove the spacers and the strip and secure a piece of metal track in the center of the open space. When using foam as an underlayment, fasten the metal track directly to the subfloor. When using whisper walk, fasten the track on top of the whisper walk. Run the screws through the whisper walk into the subfloor below.
Cut a strip of laminate T-molding. Check the track and be sure it is not bent anywhere. Lift the molding up at a slight angle. Working left to right, squeeze the molding into the track. Once it is fitted into the track, it cannot be removed without causing permanent damage.
When Pergo meets another floor surface that's lower than the Pergo surface, like carpeting or vinyl, use one of the reducer strips.
It goes in just like the T-molding strip. Remember, when using foam, fasten the track on the subfloor. When using whisper walk, fasten the track on top of the whisper walk. Squeeze into the track by pressing left to right.
Here are two ways to finish the end of a wall base or quarter round. To cut a return, just cut a 45-degree angle at the end of the molding. Then cut another 45-degree angle at the end of another piece of molding, just as if you were going around an outside corner. After you have cut the second piece, adjust the miter saw so that you can make a 90-degree cut. Carefully cut the small piece at 90 degrees, like this. Then take this small piece the return, and glue it with a dab of construction adhesive to the end of the molding and fasten the molding into place.
Then we countersink the nail holes and fill the holes with finishing putty, used without the hardener. Do not use acetone for cleanup on the wall base or quarter round. You can use the Pergo end piece covering kit. Outline the shape of the molding with a pencil. Then cut out the shape. Remove the paper backing, which reveals the self-sticking adhesive, and press it firmly on the end of the molding. If you need to trim it, use a sharp knife blade.
End moldings finish Pergo floors when they meet vertical thresholds like this exterior door, as well as sliding glass doors, tub or shower basins, raised hearths or sills. Fasten with Pergo sealant. Stairs are the only time you will actually secure Pergo to a surface, in this case the tread and/or riser. There are a variety of stair conditions you might come up against. Make sure the stairs are in good condition. Loose treads or risers need to be replaced or securely repaired. Clean the stairs thoroughly as well. Scrub up any loose paint, debris, or old adhesives. Let's look at how you maintain that floating floor concept at the top of the stairs. Special stair nosings from Pergo allow the floating floor to slide right up underneath them. Like our other moldings, they conceal the quarter-inch expansion space. First, attach a piece of Pergo cut to cover the end of the step. When using Pergo foam as an underlayment, attach the stair nosing directly to the subfloor. When using whisper walk, you need to shim the stair nosing to accommodate for the thickness of the whisper walk. You can use Pergo loose tongues. Adhere several strips of loose tongue to the bottom of the stair nosing. Then fasten the nosing using a quality construction adhesive. You must also nail or screw the nosing into place. Mark the nosing before drilling for at least 4 nails or screws every 3 feet or 1 meter. Place clear tape on the surface of the nosing. Drill the holes, then set the nails and countersink. Always install stairs from the top down. Squeeze 3 beads of quality construction adhesive along the length of the tread. Spread the adhesive evenly. When pre-cutting planks for treads, add the thickness of the Pergo plank on the step edge to the depth of the tread. Then deduct 1 5/8 inches, or 40 millimeters, to allow for the stair nosing. The tread will require 2 planks. The piece left from the second plank can be used for the riser. Glue the 2 Pergo pieces together at the tongue and groove using Pergo glue. Place the seam at the back of the tread, then press firmly to seat the plank into the adhesive. Wipe off excess glue at the joint. Spread the adhesive on the back of the Pergo plank cut for the riser. Then press it firmly onto the riser, making a tight fit to the tread. Next, fasten the narrow strip of Pergo to the step edge. Finally, fasten the nosing using construction glue and nails or screws, and countersink. Finish all the treads. Then, with clear tape in place, fill the holes with color-coordinated Pergo finishing putty. Remove the tape. Avoid walking on the stairs for at least an hour.
Here's where Pergo really shines. Nothing could be easier to clean and keep beautiful.
You're right, Karen. Let's start with the first cleanup, right after installation.
Use Pergo cleaner. Just spray lightly on the floor and wipe, or use a solution of 1 cup vinegar or half a cup of ammonia per gallon of water. This will easily clean up the residue or glue haze left on the floor. To remove the glue haze after installation, damp mop several times with one of these solutions, then drop a bath towel on the damp area and use the mop to buff dry the remaining water residue. This speeds the removal of the glue haze.
And while you shouldn't have any droplets of hardened glue, if you do, just dampen a cloth with 100% acetone and wipe. Don't worry about harming the finish. This is a Pergo floor. It can take it.
Then, as you live on your Pergo floor, just clean by sweeping. Or you can vacuum, but only if the vacuum doesn't have a beater bar. In case you're wondering, this is a beater bar.
It's easy to care for your Pergo floor. For spills and messes, just wipe with a damp cloth or use a damp mop. You can also use Pergo cleaner, but do not use soap or detergent on Pergo ever.
And don't use floor polish or cleaning wax or any of the things you're probably used to using on your floors.
They can actually bind dirt with the surface of your Pergo flooring. Just stick with water.
It's so simple, it's almost hard to believe. But for routine cleaning, just sweep and damp mop using very little water. Now, if you have a difficult spill,
Such as paint, India ink, fingernail polish, that kind of thing.
just use denatured alcohol or a small amount of acetone on a cloth. Even these spots will come right up. Pergo is extremely scratch resistant, but any floor can be scratched. To protect your floor from scratching, place Pergo floor protectors under all furniture that sits on your Pergo floor, and place doormats at the inside of all exterior doors. Vacuum or dust mop regularly.
After installation, you may notice some swelling at the joints. This swelling is caused by the moisture of the glue, and it'll disappear in 4 to 6 weeks. If you get some minor damage to your floor, you can easily repair it using Pergo finishing putty. It's color coordinated with the Pergo designs.
Here we have 2 chips in the floor. To repair these, we'll start by using a knife to make the edges of the damaged area straight. After the edges are straight, put clear tape around the edges of the damaged spots. Then, mix up a bit of finishing putty by blending a small amount of the Pergo putty with a few drops of the hardener. Apply the mix to the damaged area with a Pergo spacer or plastic putty knife. Smooth out the surface and don't trap any air bubbles in the putty. Then remove the tape before it dries. The finishing putty will dry in 30 to 60 minutes. When it's almost dry, check to make sure the repaired area is even with the floor. If it's too high, lightly rub the drying putty with a small piece of 4/0 steel wool over the end of a pencil eraser until the repair is level with the floor. Never use steel wool directly on Pergo. If the damage you're trying to repair is just too large to cover with finishing putty, say anything larger than 1/4 of an inch or 7 millimeters, contact a flooring professional to handle the repair. To locate an authorized Pergo repair specialist in your area, call 1-800-33-PERGO. And now you're done. Congratulations, your floor looks beautiful.
If you're a professional installer, there are a few more tips and demonstrations we'd like to show you about repair and replacement. So stick around and we'll cover those in just a second.
If you're the homeowner, go enjoy your floor and invite everyone over to show off the great job you did installing it.
When you encounter damage that's just too large to repair with finishing putty, it's time to call in the professionals. Usually that means replacing an entire plank, and since Pergo has no die lots, you'll get a perfect match. The floating floor design makes this easier than you'd think. First, ask the customer to make sure the new planks sit in the room where the floor is damaged for a couple of days before the repair. This allows the planks to acclimate to the room temperature and humidity. Tell them to set out at least 2 or 3 more planks than you'll actually be installing. This will cover you if you need more than you thought. Let's do a tool check. You'll need some standard tools: a hammer, circular saw, marker, tape measure, chisel, utility knife, suction cup, vacuum, safety glasses, sanding block, tapping block, pry bar, and several sandbags. You'll also need a special Pergo milling tool and router to create a new groove, and 3 wood blocks about 3/4 by 6 inches. That's 21 by 168 millimeters. The materials you'll need are masking tape, sheetrock joint tape, loose tongues, Pergo glue, and cleaning cloths, and of course, Pergo planks. When you arrive, take one of the replacement planks. Inspect it. Check the replacement plank to make sure it's the same size as the damaged plank. If it's not acclimated, it can be longer or shorter. First, mark out your cutting area like this. A V at each end of the plank to be replaced, and then 2 lines, side by side, about an inch apart, down the center of the plank. Set your sawing depth to 8 millimeters. Cover each corner by 1/8 of an inch, or 4 millimeters, with masking tape. This is your stop guide for sawing. Carefully cut all the lines. Remove the pieces, starting with the ones in the center. Gently lift the existing adjacent plank and prop it up with a block of wood, placing the edge of the wood block at the edge of the joint. Press the cut piece down, breaking the tongue, and then pull up, just a little, and wiggle until the piece breaks free. Repeat this action for all of the pieces. Cut out corners carefully. Vacuum up the broken pieces, being sure to keep everything clean, so you don't let any pieces get under the existing floor. If the underlayment is whisper walk, leave it in place. If foam is the underlayment, carefully remove it without damaging the vapor barrier. If there is, make sure the plastic vapor barrier is smoothed out and flat so the milling tool won't damage it. Take your chisel and remove the broken tongue. You can take a scrap piece of plank and place it under the existing floor to make it easier to move the chisel. Adjust your milling tool on your router and mill a scrap piece of plank. Test fit it to the replacement plank. Now set the router on the existing floor and proceed to mill the groove. Cut and fit one long, loose tongue and one short, loose tongue. Sand the ends of the loose tongue so they will fit into the corners. Prepare the replacement plank. Mark the back side of the plank. Adjust the depth of the saw blade and cut to remove the underside of the groove on the long and the short side. Smooth the cut edge. Remove 1/4 of an inch of the existing tongue at each corner of the plank. Now dry fit the plank, checking all of the joints for an even fit. Next, remove the plank with a suction cup. Take out the loose tongue and place paper strips under the joints. To replace the loose tongue, begin by filling the groove with glue. Then press the tongue to the back of the groove. Remove the excess glue from the top of the tongue. Glue the remaining grooves. Then apply a bead of glue on top of the loose tongue. Okay, now it's time to fit the replacement plank into place. Press to force the excess glue up to the surface. Clean off the surface glue. Weight the plank carefully until all of the joints are even. Caution the homeowner to avoid walking on the replacement plank and adjacent area for at least 12 hours. Remind them when they remove the weights, the joints will be swollen. This swelling will disappear within 4 to 6 weeks. So, that's how it's done. If you have any questions about installing or repairing Pergo floors, just call 1-800-33-PERGO for expert answers.